Howl of the Wendigo. The wind howled through the canyons, a cold bite to it that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The fire crackled, its warm glow barely cutting through the dark around us as we sat around it. The only sound besides the occasional crack of dry wood was the wind and the soft rustle of the night creatures. We were a group of cowhands, gathered for a quick rest before moving the herd on at first light. One of the younger boys, fresh-faced and eager, had been asking too many questions. Questions about the land, about the strange and eerie places we passed by, about things that didn't sit right with a seasoned cowboy. Finally, he asked, "Mr. McCall, I heard folks talking about things out here, things that aren't human. What's the story behind all that?" I leaned back in my old leather chair, the firelight dancing off the weathered lines of my face. Took a long pull from my flask, then spat out the taste of dust and whiskey before speaking. "You heard right, son. There's plenty out here that ain't human. You've heard the stories, the ones folks don't like talking about, things that walk the wild, dark places where the sun don't shine. Those places where no good man dares go after dark. But if you want to hear about what really lies out there, well, I reckon I can tell you a story." The fire popped, and the others leaned in, listening. I could feel the young cowboy's eyes on me, wide with curiosity, and I let the silence stretch for a moment before I spoke again, my voice low, just loud enough for them to hear. "Out in the deep woods, where the trees get thick and twisted like they've been pulled down by the devil's own hand, there's something folks call a Wendigo. Ain't no myth, no tall tale. No, I've seen one. Hell, I've heard one." The wind moaned again, and I let it hang there, letting the tension settle in the air. "A Wendigo ain't like anything you've ever seen. It's a creature of the cold, a spirit made of hunger. You see, back in the old days, when the winters were harder than a broken heart, there were men who couldn't stand the cold. They were lost, out there in the deep snow, with no food left, starving. And some of them, when they got desperate enough, well, they'd do what any man would do when hunger starts gnawing at your bones. They'd turn on each other. They'd eat their own." The young cowboy shifted uncomfortably, his eyes flicking from me to the shadows. I could see it in his face. He wasn't sure if he wanted to hear more. "Thing is, eating another man? That ain't just a hunger of the stomach. It's a hunger of the soul. And that's what makes the Wendigo. You eat your brother, your kin, or worse, and the spirit of that man, the thing inside him, it's twisted into something dark, something hungry. And it don't stop. Ever." I took another pull from my flask, watching the flames flicker, casting long shadows that stretched out like fingers reaching for something. "Now, I ain't talking about some half-wolf, half-man critter. No, this thing, it's something else. It's tall, real tall, taller than a man, with limbs long as tree branches, the skin stretched tight over bones so thin you'd swear it was made of ice. But the worst part, son, it ain't the way it looks. It's the sound it makes when it's close. Hear that screech in the wind? That's the sound of a Wendigo's call, a howl that'll freeze the blood in your veins." I saw the young cowboy's hand tighten around the edge of his saddle, his knuckles white. "Now, the worst thing about a Wendigo is it don't kill right away. No, it lets you suffer. It drives you mad with hunger. You start feeling like you're starving, like you'll never eat enough. It gets inside your mind, twists it up. You can't think straight. You'll turn on your own kin, just like the men did long ago. And that hunger, it don't ever stop. It gets worse, worse than any man should know." I paused, my gaze shifting to the fire, the orange glow reflecting in my eyes. "Some say you can hear the Wendigo's voice in your head, whispering to you. It calls you to the dark places, the cold places, where it waits. It promises you warmth, a taste of what you've been craving. But once you take a bite from that thing, well, you ain't human anymore. You're one of them. And the hunger? It never lets you go." The wind picked up, the flames of the fire dancing wildly as if something was stirring in the dark, something watching us from just beyond the light. The crackle of the fire seemed louder now, more erratic, like it was alive. I could feel it too, an unease creeping in, like someone was listening, waiting for me to finish. "I was out there once," I continued, my voice quieter now, eyes dark, "on a cold night just like this one, alone, marking my way through the snow. I came across a camp, saw a fire in the distance, thought it was just another cowboy, maybe a hunter, so I rode over. But when I got close enough, I saw them. 3 men. Poor souls. Long gone. All froze stiff, their faces locked in terror. But what got me, what made my blood run cold, was that they weren't alone. Standing over him, like it had been waiting for me, was one of them. I stopped, letting the story settle in the air, then leaned in close, my voice barely a whisper. The thing looked at me, its eyes like black pits, empty, hollow. It didn't make a sound, just stood there, in the dark. And I could feel it, the hunger. It was pulling at me, whispering to me, telling me I wasn't far enough gone yet. I don't know how long I stood there, just staring at it. I don't know why I didn't shoot it, but I didn't. All I know is that I felt its hunger crawl inside my chest, deep down in my bones. I didn't wait around to find out what happened next. I left, rode straight out of there and never looked back. The fire popped again, a loud crack that made the boy jump. I smiled grimly. Son, if you ever hear that howl, you'd best run. Because when the Wendigo calls, you don't want to be the one it's hunting. And let me tell you this, there's always one close by. You just got to listen. The wind howled louder then, as if in answer, and the fire flickered as if something out there in the darkness was watching, waiting.